What's up, guys? This is Manoj Poptani. I welcome you all on behalf of the Edupedia world. It's been a fantastic day outside, and I'm sure that you guys are enjoying your life to the fullest, like as usual. Perfect, guys. So, we have been studying this particular topic relating to corporate governance and audit committee from the past two presentations, and in this presentation I'll tell you some of the things which are required to be disclosure requirements. Okay, what all are the disclosure requirements under clause 49 subsection 4. So we'll get to know about each and every kind of significant disclosure requirement in this particular presentation, which have been solely dedicated towards this topic. So are you guys excited? Are you guys enthusiastic? Perfect. Let's go with that flow. Fasten up your seatbelts. We are about to take off with the first core topic of the day, and that will be, but before doing so, are you revising your topic? If in case you are not, do not do this. Go and revise your topic, because that's something which is extremely crucial to make you sail through your CA final examination. Perfect, guys. I do believe that you'll be able to do so. Perfect. So let's start the conversation with significant disclosure requirements as per clause 49 subclause 4 of the listing agreement. Okay, so there are 7 major disclosure requirements as per the clause 49 subclause 4 of the listing agreement. So we need to have the disclosure on related party transactions, accounting treatment disclosures, on board disclosures about the risk management, about the proceeds from the public issue, right issue, preferential issue, and so on, about the remuneration to directors, about the management discussion and analysis report MDA, and finally about the disclosure to shareholders. So this is something which I wanted to talk to you about, the disclosure requirements. Let's start understanding what these significant disclosure requirements say, one after the other. We'll mark the beginning first of all with the first one. First thing first comes, as always. So we'll mark the beginning with related party transactions. So what all are the disclosure requirements as related party transactions? That would be covered under 49 clause subclause 4 and A. So that is something which will be done in this particular thing. So let's come towards disclosure point first of all. So what would be the disclosure in this case, and what are your duties as an auditor that you need to get complied with? So disclosure. The report on corporate governance basically requires the disclosure on certain transactions with related parties and transactions which may not be at arm's length transaction. Okay, so we need to ensure that we do provide those transactions which are just not at the arm's length. So transactions which are required to be disclosed by the management to the committee are all those transactions with the related parties entered into the ordinary course of business are required to be disclosed in a summary form. That is number one thing. You need to disclose the transactions in the summary form with all the persons who are related parties, with whom you have undertook some of the related party transactions. Number one, that is, you need to disclose them in the summary form. Number two, all the material transactions with related parties which do not fall within the normal business transactions. Okay, the ones which have not been covered in first part. So you need to disclose them individually. Number two, that was material transactions with related parties not disclosed in point number 1 needs to be disclosed individually, not just in summary form, but they require some higher attention. So they need to be disclosed individually. And then every kind of material transaction with any party, be it related or otherwise. I'm not talking about any other person who is a related party. There could be some of the parties which are altogether unrelated to you. So all the material transactions either with related party or with anybody else which are not considered as the arm's length transaction, then again they needs to be disclosed individually. Why? Because that is something you have guessed it very right, because since that particular transaction you are not considering it as the arm's length transaction, in that particular case it needs to be disclosed individually. So guys, many people must be pondering about this fact, sir, what does arm's length transaction actually mean? Guys, it simply means the kind of transaction that you are having between two unrelated persons, okay, at the fair market value price in the competitive markets. Let's suppose I go to a grocery shop owner, okay, and I ask him, okay, dude, kindly provide me some of the brinjals, some of the potatoes, some of the tomatoes. So he'll be providing me all these 3 commodities at a fair market price Why? Because I am unrelated to him. He's not making any kind of favor to me by reducing the prices. He'll offer me the fair market price in that competitive market. So this is something arm's length transaction which is being done between him and me. Okay. But in many of the transactions with a related party, so it happens to be a case wherein a company is having its subsidiary or its associate or any other person, company in which that particular director is having some of the interest. So then comes this related party transaction into the picture wherein the kind of price, the kind of consideration that you'll be getting from the next person is just not the kind of a fair market price. Okay. You are getting biased with that person and you are offering them something beyond the market price or something less the market price. So this is something which won't be considered under the arm's length transaction. So if in case there have been some of the material transactions with related parties or otherwise with any other person which are not considered as the arm's length transaction, then they need to be disclosed individually. That's a high alert area. Now, what you need to do as an auditor. First of all, you need to verify whether a transaction is a related party transaction or not. As per AS 18 and SA 550. You need to analyze first of all that. And if in case it is, then you need to set up your audit procedures accordingly. And then see whether the management has placed the required information before the audit committee as per the clause 49 or not. This is your duty as an auditor. You need to verify the transaction being a related party transaction or not, and you need to check whether the management has placed the required information before the audit committee as per clause 49 on their table or not. This was about the disclosure requirement with relation to the related party transaction, about the disclosures and your duty as an auditor. I hope you guys got the complete clarity with respect to the same thing. Transactions should be disclosed in summary form. Material transactions with the related party needs to be disclosed individually, and material transactions with related parties which are not considered as arm's length transaction, and in that particular case it needs to be disclosed individually. Let's move towards the next topic, and that will be about the disclosure requirement as to accounting treatment. So what are the various kind of disclosure requirement, as if I'll talk about the accounting treatment, and what is your duty as an auditor in that particular case. So guys, in the preparation of the financial statements, where a treatment different from that which is being prescribed in the accounting standard has been followed, then this fact shall be disclosed in the financial statements, together with the management's explanation as to why they believe that such alternative treatment is more representative of the true and fair view of the underlying business transaction. In the corporate governance report, they need to disclose that fact, that why they have chosen a different accounting treatment, a different treatment which is being prescribed by the accounting standard, and why they believe that it's going to provide a more better representation of the true and fair view of the underlying business transaction in the corporate governance report. They need to disclose that. Now comes your responsibility as an auditor. What should you do? So in this regard, you as an auditor have to refer to few of the provisions of the Companies Act 2013 and check whether the same thing is being done appropriately or not, and you need to refer to the provisions accordingly with the CEO and the CFO certification which is given under clause 49 subclause 4. That is your duty as an auditor. So this is all about the disclosure requirement as to the accounting treatments. Now moving on to the third disclosure requirement, and this is with relation to the risk management. Okay, so what all are the disclosure requirement as to the risk management as per clause 49 4C. So what is the disclosure requirement? So the company shall lay down all those procedures to inform the board members about the risk assessment and minimization procedures, how to minimize that risk which is being assessed. They need to lay down all the procedures to inform the board members about each and every kind of risk assessment and minimization procedures. These procedures shall be periodically reviewed to ensure that the executive management controls the risk through means of a properly defined framework. This is something which is extremely crucial for any of the company. They need to analyze each and every kind of risk with which that company is currently working upon, and the kind of all those risk assessment and minimization procedures, so that they can lay down the procedures accordingly. So this should be disclosed in that report itself. So these procedures should be periodically reviewed as well. Now comes your duty as an auditor. What are you supposed to do? Number one, you need to ascertain whether the executive management has a proper defined framework for risk management and its control or not. You need to ascertain that. Okay. So as an auditor, you need to ascertain whether the management is actually like provided for some proper defined manner for the risk management and its control or not. Next, you as an auditor need to ascertain whether that framework has been like informed to the board members or not. This is something very crucial because that needs to be known fact by the board members itself. So they must be like having a fair idea about the framework which has been like used by the executive management into their for risk management and their control. So that needs to be informed to the board members as well. So that is your responsibility as an auditor. And number 3, you as an auditor need to ensure that the management has effectively implemented the risk management framework and that it is applied to those activities and processes of the business and communicated throughout the information organization itself. So you need to ensure that the management has effectively implemented those risk management framework within its premises at all or not. So these are the disclosure requirements with relation towards the risk management. You need to disclose all these things and you need to comply with all those kind of responsibilities with which you are interested upon as an auditor. You need to ascertain whether the executive management has a proper defined framework for risk management and its control or not. You need to ascertain that such framework has been informed to the board members and you need to ensure that the management has effectively implemented the risk management framework within its premises or not. I hope you guys got the complete clarity with respect to these disclosure requirements as well. Perfect guys, let's move towards the next disclosure requirement. So this disclosure requirement is relation to with the kind of proceeds that the company gets from any of the public issue, any of the right issue or preferential allotment, any of that stuff. So what the company usually does with the kind of proceeds they get or obtain with respect of any of the public issue, right issue or preferential issue. So that needs to be like mentioned in one of the clauses 49. So what are those disclosure requirements? Let's understand that one by one. So number 1, when the money is raised through any of the public issue, right issue, preferential issue, then in that case the directors shall disclose to the audit committee the uses and applications for those funds by major category. Let's say they are about to take any of the capital expenditure, okay, or they are about to take any of the sales or marketing initiative, or they are going to utilize those proceedings for any of the working capital requirement. They need to tell that what is the kind of use, what is the application of those funds that they are going to take up in their major category on a quarterly basis as a part of their quarterly declaration of financial results. Number 1, that's the foremost thing. The directors shall disclose to the audit committee the kind of uses of the funds raised through the public or right issue on quarterly basis. Number 2, on an annual basis, the company shall prepare a statement of funds which are utilized for the purposes other than those stated in the offer document, prospectus or notice and should be placed before the audit committee. Again, let's suppose there is a situation wherein the purpose for which the company issued any of the public issue or right issue or preferential issue, somehow the company was not able to utilize those funds for that particular purpose which they specified in the offer document or prospectus or any other document. So in that particular case, the company needs to file a statement of funds for the kind of funds they utilize for the purposes other than those which were stated in that offer document or prospectus and needs to place that document before the audit committee. Such disclosure shall be made only till the time that full money raised through the issue has been fully spent. That needs to be taken care of. So such disclosure shall be made only till such time that the full money which was raised through that issue has been fully spent or not. Number 3, this statement shall be certified by the statutory auditors of the company. It shall be certified by you as a statutory auditor of that company. Number 4, the audit committee shall make appropriate recommendations to the board to take up the steps in that matter. That's the kind of responsibility of audit committee. They need to make some appropriate recommendations to the board to take up the steps in that matter, and where the company has actually like appointed any of the monitoring agency to monitor the utilization of the proceeds of public issue, right issue or preferential issue, it shall place before the audit committee the monitoring report of such agency upon the receipt without any kind of delay. Why? Because let's suppose the audit committee has placed up any of the company which is the monitoring agency. They have been like entrusted with the responsibility to check whether the company is actually utilizing the proceeds for those purposes only or not. So they may appoint any of the third party agency So that is called monitoring agency. They'll monitor whether the utilization of those proceeds of public issue, right issue or preferential issue are actually utilized for the same purposes or not, and they'll place that particular report before the audit committee, okay, upon the receipt without any kind of delay. The objective of this particular subclause which I'm talking about, this entire disclosure requirement as to the proceeds of public issue or right issue, it's basically to ensure, guys, that in case of any of the diversion of the funds from the proceeds of issue, it should appropriately brought to the notice of the audit committee for suitable action which they can take. That is why it has been included in the disclosure requirement. Money is extremely important for any of the company. Okay, finance is the most core function. So if you are obtaining some of the proceeds from any of the issue, public issue, right issue, you need to ensure that whether the same amount is being utilized for the same purposes or not. That can create any of the problem later on. So that needs to be taken care of. This was all about the disclosure requirement as to the proceeds of public issue, right issue or preferential issue. I hope you guys got the complete clarity with respect to each and every topic of here. Perfect, guys. Let's move towards the next topic, and this will be relating to the disclosure requirements as to the director's remuneration. So guys, there are a few matters which you need to understand that they have to be disclosed as a requirement with relation to any of the director's remuneration. All these matters shall be disclosed in the annual report of the company. Okay. Number one, all the kind of pecuniary relationship or transactions of non-executive directors with the company. So non-executive directors are the directors who don't have any of the pecuniary or relationship or any of the transactions with the company in a normal course of business. Okay, they are the ones who are independent. Their stuff is independent in nature, and they are the independent directors. They just take their remuneration to take care of the company, but they don't get involved in any of the procedures of them. Okay, so if in case there have been any of the transaction or relationship like this, then that needs to be recorded. Okay, why the non-executive director had some of the pecuniary relationship or transactions with the company, that needs to be disclosed. Okay, because that's something which is unusual. Number two, we need to ensure about a few of the disclosure. They need to be made in section and on the corporate governance of its annual report. Number one, all the elements of the remuneration packages of individual directors which are summarized in major groups such as salary, benefits, bonus, stock options, pension. You need to report that. You need to be aware of the kind of remuneration packages which have been made to the individual directors. So that is something which has been specifically provided by the act itself. So this disclosure needs to be made in that annual report. That is about the remuneration package of individual directors. Next, about the details of their fixed component and the performance linked incentives along with the performance criteria. So what amount of salary are they taking up as a fixed component, or what amount of salary are being paid to them as performance linked incentives. Again, this is something which will be disclosed in the annual report itself. Next will be the service contracts, the notice period, their severance fees. All these things will be provided in the annual report itself. And finally, the stock option detail. Google, Microsoft, Dell, these are the companies which don't provide salary to their personnel on heavy fixed component basis. They are the companies which provide a lot of stock option to their directors. Okay, so this stock option detail, if any, whether issued at a discount as well as the period over which that will be accrued and over which that will be excisable. So that needs to be disclosed in that annual report itself. So disclosure needs to be made in the section on corporate governance of the annual report relating to the remuneration packages of the individual directors, the details of the fixed component and performance linked incentives, the service contracts, the notice period, the severance fees, and any other stock option details, whichever, if any, are applicable, needs to be disclosed in the annual report. Perfect. Let's move with the criteria now. So, any of the criteria, policy for making the payments to non-executive directors. Alternatively, this may be put up on the company's website itself and referenced down there too in the annual report. So you need to disclose the kind of criteria and policy for making the payments to non-executive directors as to how the company is actually paying to the non-executive directors. What is the criteria of payment and what all are the policies for making the payment to them. Number 3 is that if I'll talk about number of shares, so number of shares and convertible instruments which are held by any of the non-executive directors, this is again which is required to be disclosed. And lastly, non-executive directors are required to disclose their shareholding, both owned and held by for the persons who are beneficiary in that case in the listed company in which they are proposed to be appointed as directors prior to their appointment. That's simple enough, guys. Let's suppose you are an independent director, okay, and you are already holding some of the shares of my company. I am like willing to appoint you as a non-executive director of my company. So in that particular case, you have to abide by the condition with that fact that you need to disclose about your shareholding of my company in which I am like proposing to appoint you as a director prior to your appointment in my company as a director. So you need to do that because you're already holding some of the shares of my company. So in that particular case, you won't be the one who will be like non-executive because you're already having some of the interest in my company. So non-executive directors are required to disclose their shareholding in the listed company in which they are proposed to be appointed as directors prior to their appointment. These details should be disclosed in the notice to general meeting called for appointment of such director. This was all about the disclosure requirement as to the director's remuneration. All pecuniary relationship and transactions of non-executive directors with company needs to be disclosed. Each and every kind of disclosure needs to be made in the section on corporate governance of the annual report relating to the remuneration packages, detail of fixed and performance linked incentives, service contracts, notice period and stock option details. Apart from this, you need to disclose the criteria and the policy for making the payments to non-executive directors. Along with that, the number of shares, convertible instruments held by that non-executive directors, and non-executive directors are required to disclose their shareholding in the listed company in which they are proposed to be appointed as directors prior to appointment. I hope you guys got the complete clarity with respect to the same. Perfect, guys. Let's move towards the last topic of this presentation, and that will be relating to disclosure requirements as to management decision analysis. So this is MDA report. Okay, so what all needs to be disclosed in that MDA report will be looked upon in this segment. So guys, what is MDA report? Okay, so guys, as a part of director's report, a management discussion and analysis report should form part of the annual report to the shareholders. Okay, it has been like clearly mentioned over there that the management discussion and analysis report should also form part of the annual report to the shareholders. MDA shall include discussion on various matters, okay, like industry structure and developments, opportunities and the kind of threats that company is going to face, segment wise and product wise reporting and about their performance. Let's suppose my company is having like n number of products. Let's say I'm selling toothpaste, I'm selling shampoos, I'm selling tooth powders as well. So in that particular case, how has been my performance with respect to different product wise? And if I'll talk about segment wise, so my company is also working in paper industry, my company is also working in cigarette business, my company is also working in hotel business. So that will be segment wise performance. So how have been my kind of segment wise performance and how have been my product wise performance so far? That has also been included in the MDA report. And how about the outlook? How has been like the world viewing our company? How has been their outlook towards our company, the kind of work that we are doing? What is our industry structure in that particular case and what all developments can be done? This will be included in MDA report. Apart from this, the kind of internal control systems and their adequacy that will be done. So the MDA report shall also include this particular stuff wherein position of the internal control system of the company and whether those internal control systems are adequate enough to ensure the security and safety for different internal audit segments is possible and feasible for the company or not. So that will also be included in this particular MDA report. Apart from that, any of the risk or concern, whether the company is operating competitive market awareness, whether about the kind of operating exposure or any of the translation exposure, any kind of risk which is being like covering any of the concern for the company currently. So that will also be included in MDA report. Apart from this, MDA report will also include the discussion on financial performance with respect to the operational performance. How have been the financial performance of the company so far and whether the company is growing, whether there have been some of the instances which is going to hit any of the going concern assumption for the company or not, if the company is working perfectly in an atmosphere wherein the company is exponentially like increasing its revenues or not. And finally, the material developments. What all material developments like happened in HR or industrial relation front, including the number of people who have been employed with the company. So all these things will be like included in management discussion and analysis report. This is number one. Apart from this, there will be another point which will be relating towards conflict of interest matters. So senior management shall make disclosures to the board. What? Relating to all the kind of material, financial and commercial transactions that they are doing, where they have any kind of personal interest that may have a potential conflict with the interest of the company at large. Let's suppose you as a senior management personnel, you are dealing into some of the company's share, commercial dealings with the bodies which have shareholding with the management and their relatives. So don't you think so that's going to affect the interest of the company itself? Why? Because you are already holding some of the shares of that company and now you want to deal on behalf of that company with with your company. So definitely that's going to increase and create a conflict of interest for the company. That will also be disclosed in that management discussion and analysis report. And finally, what are your duties as an auditor? So number one, MDA report is likely to include each and every kind of non-financial information which may be outside the area of auditor's expertise. So you as an auditor are only required to review the compliance with disclosure requirement and not verify the particular facts as disclosed by the management, because that's something which is beyond your scope in that particular case. Next, you as an auditor should verify whether segment-wise and product-wise performance disclosed by the management discussion and analysis report is consistent with the data in financial statements compliant with AS 17 and as per the provisions of Companies Act as well or not. So that should be your duty. So you need to verify whether the segment-wise data and product-wise data has been provided in consistency with the data in financial statements or not. So that is your duty as an auditor. So these are the disclosure requirements which needs to be made in management discussion and analysis report. That will include the industry structure and developments, opportunities and threats, segment-wise and product-wise performance, your outlook, internal control system and their adequacy, risk and concerns, discussion on financial performance with respect to operational performance, and finally, resulting and providing into the material developments in HR and number of personnel. I hope you guys got the complete clarity with respect to each and every topic that we covered today. But you have to do one thing, and that should be your revision. Guys, this is something which I can't do on your behalf. I can teach you up, I can make you understand for each and every kind of concept. But it is revision which is going to make and ensure that you guys don't flunk in your CA final examination. That is something which you need to do on your own. So don't forget in that. Perfect, guys. Yours and mine effort are definitely going to do wonders for you guys. But you need to ensure that you guys revise your topic time and again. With this, I'll be concluding my video with a dose of motivation, and that will be learn something new every single day. And you will never get old if you do. Louis Bay was a person who quoted this beautiful quote. So life is too short. Life is too short. People used to live 100 years of life way back in some centuries. They used to be Vedas, Maharshis and Rishi Munis. But now they don't exist anymore. Okay, the normal life expectancy has reduced in India approximately around 60-65. So life is too short, and the time that has already been spent, the time wasted will never come back. Maybe you can earn lots of money. The money which you have lost, you can easily acquire them. But the time which you will be losing up today, that cannot come again. So try to learn something new each and every single day. Try to bring that spark in you wherein you can learn. Wow, I'm going to learn this thing new. Perfect. Why don't I try this out today itself? Wow, I should do. Cool. Go ahead. Don't think too much. Learn something new every day and you will never get old if you do. Perfect, guys. But I'll say thank you on behalf of the Edupedia world. Keep interacting via questions, queries and YouTube comment boxes. I will love to answer each one of your query. Stay connected.